So measuring inflation. So inflation is the persistent rise in the general price level across the economy. So when there's a persistent rise in the price of goods on the price of goods and services in the economy, it is inflation. But it is inflation if it exceeds 3%. That means if the general price level increases more than 2%, then there is inflation. I think inflation is clear. Then we have deflation. For deflation, this is a continuous general fall in prices across the country. When the inflation rate, when the prices of goods and services start falling by 1%, then there's deflation. Is it clear? Then we have disinflation. For disinflation, this is a fall in the rate of inflation. That means the inflation rate starts falling by 2%. We call it disinflation. Because when inflation rises, when there's inflation, it means the general price level has increased more than 2%. So if it falls by 2%, we call it disinflation. Is it clear? Then we have hyperinflation. For hyperinflation means that the increase in general price level is so high, the inflation rate is so high, above even 3, 4, 5%. That's what we call hyperinflation. Is hyperinflation clear? Then we have what we call reflation. Reflation is the rise in the GDP, which occurs following your GDP, that's the measurement of your output. If your GDP increases during recession is what we call it, the economy is not growing. A fall in the economy for 2 quarters, that's what we call recession. That means the economy starts declining in a year. So if the economy declines, if there's economic decline in 6 months consecutively, then there's recession. So if during recession your GDP increases, we call it reflation. Do you understand what reflation is here? The GDP that rise during recession. Because normally when there's recession, GDP is supposed to fall. Because at that point in time, output will fall. Because there's economic decline. But if in that economy or in that country, the GDP rises during the inflation, we call it reflation. Is it clear? Then we have what we call stagflation. For stagflation, this is the term used to describe a period when inflation is rising and the economy is in recession. There's a difference between reflation and stagflation. For reflation, the GDP is rising during a recession. For stagflation, the inflation rate continues to increase despite the fact that there's a recession. Do you understand the difference between stagflation and reflation? Reflation, there is a rise in the GDP of a country or of an economy during recession. Recession is what? An economic decline. So during the economic decline, your GDP continues to rise at that point in time, at that situation. It is called reflation. But when the inflation rate continues to rise during the recession, we call it stagflation. Is stagflation clear? Then, measuring your inflation, you can measure the inflation using the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which measures the food basket a household can afford at a given period of time. That's what we call Consumer Price Index. Is that clear? So here we have to calculate the inflation rate for these years. So these are the economy, which has almost 8 years with it. So this is for food. This is the food basket. We call it food basket. That means in terms of goods and services that is being produced in that country and the household, what they buy. So here we have the food, we have other items, the total in weights. Then we have the percentage in the annual increase for food, the annual increase in percentage for other items. So now the question says, calculate the rate of inflation in each year. So to calculate the rate of inflation in each year, we need to know the change, the annual increase in the inflation rate. So for food, we say we have food. Let's see here one. For for food 300, but there's an increase of 310. This is 10%. The percentage annual increase in price is 10% for food in year one. So that means there's an annual increase of 300 plus 10, which makes it 310. Is that clear? Then for 310 it will be the rate of inflation will be 310 over 310 minus the original price, 300 over 300 multiplied by 100. Do you get that? So this gives us 10 over 300 multiplied by 100. 0, 0, 0, 0. We have 10 over 3. So that's 3.3, I think. So we have 10 divided by 3. That's 3.33. So we have 3.3%. So this is inflation. Do you understand the rate of inflation here? That's for food. Then we have other items. Other items. Still in year one. So we have 250, 700. So for other items we have 700 plus, still 10%, 10. So that gives us 710 minus 700 over what? Over 700 times 100. Do you get it? So this gives us 10 all of 700 multiplied by 100. So we have 10 multiplied by 100 divided by 700. That's 1.4%. So basically, in every economy, they spend most of their income on food. Do you understand? So because every economy spends most of their income on food, the price of food will continue to rise. Unlike other items like petrol and the rest. Do you understand? So look at the inflation rate for food and inflation rate for other items. Food is higher. So this is for year one. Then we'll do year two. Year two, the same way. We have 250, which is for food. Food. 250 plus. What's the rate in percentage? 5%. Plus 5 gives us 255 minus the original rate 250 over 250 times 100. So we have 255 minus 250 divided by 250 times 100. 2%. So this is 2%. Then for other items, we have 750 and 10%. So we have 750 plus 10, which is 760 minus 750 over 750 times 100. So we have 10 divided by 750 times 100. 1.33%. 1.33%. So what can you notice here? You can notice that for each year, the percentage change in food is more than the rate of other items. Is it clear? So that's how we calculate the rate of inflation. So we are still on the CPI. So now we need to talk about the limitations of CPI. That means the problems of CPI, or why CPI is not the best way of measuring inflation. One, it only provides information for how much money a typical household needs to buy the same basket of goods at the same time previous years. So it means that what this indicates is that it means each individual household will have their own rate of inflation. Do you get what I'm saying here? They said it only provides information for how much money a typical household needs to buy the same basket of goods at the same time as the previous year. As a household, the items of food you buy is different from the items of food I buy. So that means we're not going to have the same inflation rate at the end of the year when we calculate the basket of food. Because the items in my own basket of food might be different from the items in your own basket of food. So that means we're going to have different inflation. Is it clear? That means each household will have different inflation rates. That's the first problem. The second one, the CPI cannot indicate changes in the quality of goods. Yes, it indicates changes in the price of goods. Yeah, it is 300 to 310, right? But it does not indicate the quality of what we are buying. So if the price has risen, yes, the price has risen. Why is there a change in price? Is it because the quality has improved or what? So the CPI does not indicate if there's quality or not, or change in quality. It only indicates about the change in price. Is it clear? 3. It is difficult to include new products since the price level for that good did not exist in the previous year. The CPI, these are years, and these are the prices of food. So this is food. These are other items. So if there are new products produced in the subsequent year, it becomes difficult for us to indicate them or to fix them or to include them into the CPI. Look at year 1, year 2, year 3. It is already constant. So it is assumed that these prices, these items are the items that are produced. No new item is being produced. So if new item is being produced, it needs a new price. So it becomes difficult for us to be able to include them into the CPI because it's a new product and it does not have a previous year price. This is a price, 300. The subsequent year is 250 because it is food. This is the price for other items, 700. The subsequent year is 750. It's there. So if there's a new item or a new product, it becomes difficult for us to include it. Where do you want to include it? Because it does not have a previous year price. So that's another limitation to CPI. Is it clear? Yes. And the last one, the CPI does not include items relating to housing and mortgage interest payments. This is included in the RPI, the Retailer Price Index. It indicates housing prices. But the Consumer Price Index does not indicate housing. So that means you won't be able to know the price of house, the mortgage people take in your Consumer Price Index. It will not be included in other items. But if it is the Retailer Price Index, RPI, it will be included. So that's the difference between RPI and CPI. Is it clear? Then we have the Producer Price Index. So this is what we call the wholesale. So what is the Producer Price Index? I wrote, it is used to measure the change in the price of a typical basket of goods bought and sold by the manufacturer of an economy. So what are they trying to say here? The PPI includes the input pricing and so for the PPI, it includes the input prices, which is prices of raw materials and fuel bought by manufacturers. That's what we call input price. For manufacturers, they need raw materials to produce, yes or no? So this is included in the Producer Price Index. And also fuel they use in manufacturing. So these ones are what we call input price. Then we have the factory gate price, which includes the finished goods that has been produced that are leaving the factory. They are already produced and they are ready to be sold. So that's what we call the PPI. So the PPI includes the input price and the factory gate price. It's different from the Consumer Price Index. It is when the Producer Price Index is done that we talk about Consumer Price Index. So those goods that are bought, that are produced, that have become what we have to buy, which are part of our own basket of food, is what we call Producer Price Index. They have been produced. Now we have to consume them. So in the course of us buying them, then we talk about inflation using the CPI. But if we are talking about inflation using the PPI, we're talking about the input price and the factory gate price. The input price is prices on raw materials and fuel bought purchased by manufacturers. Then the factory gate talks about the product that has been produced that are ready to be sold. Is it clear? So here they said the PPI is an indicator of future trends in the rate of inflation. We're talking about the CPI here. So this implies that if retailers have to pay more, like retailers, sometimes they have to pay more when they have to buy from manufacturers. So if they have to pay more in the course of buying from the manufacturers, what do? They try to shift that cost to that of consumers. So if you as a retailer, you need to buy goods from your producers, but the prices are high. So instead of you to pay the high price, you would rather shift that price to the prices which consumers are going to pay. That is what we're talking about here. So PPI is an indicator of future trends in the rate of inflation. And the rate of inflation is to measure the CPI. Are you getting what I'm saying here? An increase in, most of the time, prices are high because wholesalers or retailers, they bought from manufacturers at a higher price. And instead of them to pay for that price, they will shift the cost to consumers. So that is why we as consumers, we buy at a higher price. They would have bought it, yes, but the price at which they buy it, the cost which has increased for them will be transferred to we consumers. Is it clear? Any question about that? Okay, now read some